we joke and say we went from 0 to 60. We went from being, two guys doing what we wanted, traveling, going whatever, and then all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, we had 3 children, and we haven't had less than that since.
There's that same camaraderie that has to exist if you're going to be a team. The Giant philosophy was
people, people, people.
This is just your life, so you should know everything, right?
Should. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I usually have to ask my husband, even for things that happened before we got married. So, my name is Elmer Dalton, but everybody calls me Dalton. A wrestling coach started calling me by my last name, and it just flowed through. I started with Giant probably about 20 years ago. Done a lot of things from front end to store manager and now HR. Grew up in Harford County with my mom and sister until I was about 12, and my mom remarried to the man that I refer to as my father. Redneck, biker, tattoos everywhere, drove a Harley, gruff as they come. My mom, super cool. Honestly, she was relatively young when she had me back in the 70s, way back in the day. So we're very close. She pretty much took care of everything and did everything for me and my sister. But I would say just a standard childhood, what you would expect back in the 70s, 80s.
Talk about being gay in the 80s.
Horrifying. Horrifying. Yeah, so I officially came out at around 15, 16 years old. It was not the cool thing to do, and if anything, doing so put a target on your back. I grew up in an area that was kind of backwoods, and a lot of my family was that way. So you just kind of had to have the wherewithal to deal with and stand up for your convictions. And my mom, she was the first person that I told, and she was like okay with it. She was like, yeah, okay, but let's figure out how to tell everybody else. My dad, he was like, I don't know how I'm gonna deal with this, so until I figure it out, anybody that you're dating has to go through me. Funnily enough, he became one of my biggest allies. And then especially when I got to Georgia, he would come down for a week. He would always plan it around either Pride, or he wanted to go to Charlie Brown's, which was a drag bar. So I guess in that sense, I was pretty lucky.
Can you talk about moving to Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, after high school, moved to Georgia. I had friends that had moved to Georgia, and they lived down there, so I moved down there. Georgia was kind of my coming of age, I guess. Once I came out, my mom says, you didn't just come out of the closet, you leapt out. You just, no apologies. That was when I really got old enough to kind of go out into the community, and my first Pride, all of that stuff was down there. Those were my early formative years. Lived down there for a while and came back up here to help out my parents, and that's kind of when I transitioned into retail and ended up coming on board with Giant. So here I am. I was in my 40s, and I had set myself up for the fact that I was probably not gonna get married. I mean, when I came out, there were still states that it was punishable by imprisonment to be gay. I never thought that marriage was even ever gonna be an option for me. Having children, no. I mean, which is why when we got married and we had talked about it, even at that age, I was like, oh, kids now. But we had decided that we were going to adopt. So initially, fostering wasn't part of what we were considering. It was just adoption. But I think the social workers know that that's our weak spot. They'll call and be like, well, we have a sibling group, and there's 5 of them, and it's like, you can't break them up. You can't. At one point, we had 7 at one time. I mean, there's days when you just feel like you're just being wrung out emotionally. And then there are days when I look out back and, I see my kids swimming in the pool, and I just feel like the most blessed individual in the world. It's just kind of amazing, which is why I do what I do as far as like Pride and being out there. And, now I'm co-chair of the Pride group here. I had referenced previously about there being nothing for me to look towards or look up to in my youth. And now my children haven't been to Pride yet with me. This, I think, is going to be their first year. But, I mean, it may not be much, but I want to be that role model, that person, that, that 20-year-old cashier who's struggling with their own sexuality, to be able to look beyond that and see, here this guy is, he's successful, he works for a great company, he's got a family, so to give them things to let them see that there's a possibility beyond.